Good morning, class. Good morning, student. We have started chapter number 8, that is how to organism reproduce. And in the previous classes, we have already discussed and I have already explained you what is the meaning of reproduction, what is the meaning of asexual reproduction, what is the meaning of sexual reproduction, what is the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction, and also the different mode of asexual reproduction. So in today's class, we will be studying about the sexual reproduction. And in the sexual reproduction, we have to study about one is the sexual reproduction in the plant, that is flowering plant in angiosperm, and second one is the reproduction in the animal, that is human being. So today we will be studying about the sexual reproduction in the flowering plant, and the flowering plants are known as the angiosperm. So basically you can say sexual reproduction in flowering plant or sexual reproduction in angiosperm. Okay, so let me again explain you what is the meaning of sexual reproduction, then we will proceed. So what is the meaning of sexual reproduction? So it is a mode of reproduction in which a new organism is formed by the formation and the fusion of male and female gamete. Okay, so we can say जिस तरह से हमने देखा था in the asexual reproduction, single parent was involved and from the one single parent the offspring were produced in the sexual reproduction, the two different parent, one is male and another is female, so two different parents are involved, and by these two different parents the offsprings are produced. Offspring, you can say the child or the young one, or so here in the sexual reproduction the formation of gametes occur, and the gamete from the male parent and the gamete from the female parent fuse together to form the zygote. So the gamete have the half the number of chromosome of their parents, means the gametes are haploid. So when the gametes get fused together and forms the zygote, this is the re-establishment of the number of chromosome of their parents. So further the zygote is developed into the embryo, and this embryo grows into the new organisms, the new individual. Okay, so let's move on to the main topic, that is sexual reproduction in the flowering plant, and this, or you can say the sexual reproduction in angiosperm. So basically we have to know that in the plant there are two parts. One part is known as the vegetative part and another is known as the reproductive part. So vegetative part consists of it consists of the stem, the leaves, the roots, and the reproductive part consists of the flower. So you can say the flower is the reproductive organ of the plant. So for the reproduction we have to see the reproductive part, that is flower. So for that I have I have bought one flower there are basically the four parts of the flower, or you can say they are the four floral parts or the four whorls from the outside to inside. अगर हम बाहर से अंदर की ओर देखें, then you will get to know it consists of sepal, petal, stamen, and the carpel. Okay, so in detail I will explain you what these parts are about and what's the function of these parts and how the sexual reproduction occurs in this flowering plant. So you can see this is a flower. So the outermost part here, the green part, is known as sepal, and collectively this sepal is known as calyx. इस सेपल्स को collectively हम calyx बोलेंगे. So you can see this is the greenish, this is the outermost part of the flower. So its main function, sepal का क्या दो main function होता है, तो the main function is first is for doing photosynthesis and second one is to protect the internal organ or internal part of the flower, that is stamen and the pistil or the carpel, you can say. तो मेल एंड फीमेल जो ऑर्गन्स है उसको प्रोटेक्ट करने का काम ये सेपल करता है. इफ आई एम गोना रिमूव दिस टू शो यू द expose this the next, the second part of the flower, that is petal. So petal, you can say okay, first of all let me tell you, this is a China rose flower, hibiscus I'm taking. So this is the sepal. After that you see this is the petal. So what the petal is, so petal is the brightly colored. You can see this is the brightly colored whorl or the floral part of the flower. So it also have the two function. First is to protect the innermost male and female part of the flower, that is stamen and carpel, and second one is to attract the pollinators, attract the insect, because this brightly colored petals, the color of the petals attract the pollinators. So these petals are known as corolla. Collectively it will be known as corolla. So now I'm gonna remove this second part also. I'm removing this second part also. So after this you can see the third part, or the third floral part. If you will see, this is, you can see this is, these are the. So after that, after removing those sepals or the calyx and the corolla or the petals, you can say, we get this part, that floral part. This is stamen. So stamen is the male part of the flower, and if you see the more detail of it, you can see there's a long cylindrical stem or stalk like structure. This is known as filament. This is known as filament, and the upper top part is known as the anther. And in this anther, you can see, if you will see it closely, agar aap isko closely dekhoge, then you will find this is bilobed, and this bilobed anther, inside this it consists of the pollen grains, and the pollen grains are nothing but the male gametes. Okay, and after that, the innermost layer, the floral layer of the flower is this is the carpel, or you can say pistil, the red part, or you can say the gynoecium. So and this female part you want to see, then you can see it, the uppermost receiving chamber is known as stigma, and this long cylindrical part is the style. And if you will dissect it, and you will try to see that it has a swollen base, this is known as ovary. So here we got to know that the male part is stamen, or you can say androecium, and androecium, and it has more further detailed part, that is the anther and the filament. So long part is filament, and the topmost part, the blob like structure, that is anther. And in that anther, it consists of, it forms the male gamete, that is pollen grain. And same like that, if you see in the female part, the female part, that is gynoecium, or you can say the pistil, or you can say the carpel, it has more detailed part, that is stigma, then style. Stigma is the receiving chamber, the base, the upper part, then the long cylindrical structure, that is style, and the basal part, the swollen-most basal part, it is known as the ovary. And inside this ovary, if you will dissect it, आप इसके अंदर देखोगे, you will find the female gamete, that is ovules. So inside this ovary, you will find the ovule, that is the female gamete. So what happens, how this sexual reproduction occurs in this flowering plant, in this flower? So well, we see that through the pollination. So what the pollination meaning is? So pollination is nothing but just the transfer of pollen grain, just the transfer of male gamete pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the pistil, the female part. So it could occur, this pollination could occur between inside that between the same flower, or between the two different flowers. So when there is a transfer of male gamete pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the pistil of the same flower. एक ही flower के अंदर अगर ऐसा transfer होता है, then it will be known as the self pollination. If it occurs between the two different flowers, then it is known as the cross pollination. And cross pollination भी दो different types का हो सकता है. Cross pollination can be further divided into two types on the basis like it is transferring between the two different. So after the pollination, that is transfer of male gamete pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the pistil, what happens? The pollen grains which are received by the stigma There the pollen grains start germinating their tube. This is known as pollen tube germination. So through these tubes, what the pollen grain used to goes inside, through that style it goes inside the ovary, and in the ovary it fuses it fertilizes the female gamete. It fuses with the female gamete, that is ovule. So in this, in this, the fertilization in the plants is known as double fertilization. Why? Because at the same time two type of fusion is occurring here. So let me explain you in the detail. If you will dissect it, you can see this. If you will dissect it, you can see here. So for this you will need a microscope. In a naked eyes you cannot see. So the one male gamete is will fuse with the female gamete, that is egg, or you can say the ovule, and this fusion will result into, this fertilization will result into the formation of zygote, and this type of fusion is known as syngamy or the amphimixis. So here what happens, this zygote will further develop into embryo, and this embryo will develop into the new plant. So this is the double fusion. So after that, the same time, one more male gamete, the second male gamete, the pollen grain will fuse with the polar nuclei, and this polar nuclei and this male gamete will fuse together to form the endosperm, and this type of fusion is known as triple fusion. And here which the endosperm is formed will be required, and it will be providing the nutrition to the growing embryo here. Is now clear to you why it is known as double fertilization, because at the same time there's two type of fusion is occurring, that is double fusion and the triple fusion. Double fusion for the syngamy, or you can say for the amphimixis, where the male and female gametes fuses together to form the zygote, and further it grows into the embryo. And the triple fusion, where the male gamete is fuses with the polar nuclei to form the endosperm. This is known as the triple fusion, and this endosperm is required for the required to provide the nourishment to the growing embryo. So what happens when this fertilization has occurred? This ovule turns into the seed, and this ovary grows and turns into the fruit. And meanwhile, all the parts like you can see the sepal, calyx, the petal, corolla, the stamen, that is androeciums, fall off, and other part of this carpel or the pistil or gynoecium, you can see that stigma and the style also fall off. And what happens that this ovary develops into fruit, and the ovule develops into the seed. So till then you keep revising, and meet you in the next class. Thank you.